with these live talks is to give you some high value info and also give you some action items that you can take home with you. So stick around to the end. That way you can actually make some changes with these things that we're giving you. But it's at the end.
It's at the end, so stay for that part. If you're with us live, I'm Brandon, by the way. I don't know. I probably
Hi, Brandon.
say that. Hi, everybody. If you're with us live on Facebook, in our Just for Fun group, Drop the Fat, Not the Tacos, or in our Clean Club coaching group, that's kind of hard to say. Give us a thumbs up. Tell us that you're here. If you are not in one of those groups and you are listening on one of our podcast channels, come on over, join one of those groups, be part of the discussion, because that's super fun.
Totally.
And it's really it's cooler over here, right?
For sure.
That's why 100%. We have it. All right, what are we talking about today?
So today we're talking about a topic that both of us get asked about or have people talk to us about quite often, and happens to be something that I personally was afraid of doing up until recently as a woman: weightlifting. I'm not joking when I say first and always the most pressing issue for women when you even bring up the idea of weightlifting: we don't want to get bulky. Women are very nervous, for lack of a better word, of lifting weights, because we, trust me, as a woman who recently was very concerned about this, we worry about getting beefy overnight. So it's the fear that if we start lifting weights before we even realize what's happening to our bodies, I'm going to turn into a square or Arnold Schwarzenegger, or maybe I'll get lucky enough to look like a female bodybuilder, but I won't even have a chance to slow it down. I personally had a goal of losing a certain amount of weight and then toning up so I could have this athletic look that I used to have when I was a ballet dancer. I really started to notice a big difference in the areas I toned after I started consistently lifting weights. And I think anyone can tell I don't look beefy, I don't look bulky, and I lift weights intentionally 2 to 3 times a week. And at the moment anyway, I'm lifting 2 to 3 times a week for the last few months. And if I'm working that hard to build muscle and still look the way that I do, I think you can be pretty confident that you'll get a good idea of how your body will react to lifting weights before you hit that, oh shit, I look like a bodybuilder moment. So it also would be a really hard thing to be surprised by, because there's zero chance of that instantly happening overnight. It doesn't happen instantly. We'll talk about that a little bit more today, and I'll share some of my journey with you. But first, Brandon, how do you feel about women lifting weights, either in one of our classes, in personal training, or, even just in general?
Lifting super weights. Important. You know that. Yeah.
I do.
It's really important. I think it's very important for women to prioritize lifting or some sort of programmed resistance exercise. So first, I love that I'm seeing this change a lot. There's been something of a culture shift in fitness over the last several years. It's been, it's been happening for a while. But we're seeing women prioritizing resistance exercise and weights a lot more, especially in younger women, because this generation isn't getting that stale old cardio is for weight loss and weights are for bulking. Cardio is for women, weights are for men. BS that we grew up with. My total generation BS. Grew up with that stuff. But I'm in my 40s and we grew up with that fitness culture, and you hit the nail on the head with the most pressing concern most women have, at least that has been voiced to me. And that's that fear of getting bulky. And sure, some body types will put on more muscle than others, right? Us shorter folks will tend to put on more muscle faster. But there are certainly things you can do to keep that from happening, from from really putting on a lot of mass. Yeah. And if you happen to be of that body type, it's really pretty unusual, right? It certainly won't happen from lifting weights a couple of times a week, certainly.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And as I mentioned earlier, I was really nervous about having too much muscle. I didn't want to get bulky. But what did happen to me when I started lifting regularly though, woo, what a tongue twister, was quite the opposite of getting bulky, actually. I'll talk about that later, but I didn't get bulky.
Right. The truth of the matter is that lifting regularly burns a whole lot of calories, and really is is really far superior to cardio, slow cardio, like the treadmill, jogging,
Yeah,
cycling,
for sure.
etc., for weight loss. And that's not necessarily a recent discovery or anything, but I think a lot more people are starting to see it now.
Yeah.
We did talk a while ago, and touched on energy systems and how our bodies like utilize calories for different kinds of exercise, and how higher intensity interval exercise burns a lot more calories than traditional cardio. And weightlifting essentially is exactly that: intervals of high intensity work.
Yeah.
So not only that, but adding muscle increases our basal metabolic rate, which we've talked about as well. That's the calories that everybody loves that, right?
Yay.
That's the calories we burn just like being alive and performing basic functions throughout the day. That's the majority of our calories, actually. We burn way more calories between our workouts, throughout the rest of the day than we do actually working out, which really is disappointing news for a lot of people, I know. Remember that muscle requires energy to function and to repair.
Yep.
And that's, I think, an essential thing to have in mind for people who are sort of nervous about that, like, oh, I don't want to build too much muscle. Muscle's a good thing, and it does a lot for us. And that's just talking weight loss, right? That's really, in my mind, from the physical therapy world, like that's the least of the benefits of lifting, especially for women.
Well, now that we've gone through all that, can we talk about then why should I lift weights as a woman? There are some benefits to it, as you mentioned. And if your goal is weight loss, building muscle is actually a faster way of burning calories and keeping your weight more stable than doing the slow cardio kind of way. And that's what most of us want to know.
Yes.
However, what are some of the other benefits, Brandon? Let's talk about that first. What are the other benefits besides weight loss?
So lifting weights, it does a number of other things. So it's tremendous for our mental health. We don't really think about this. I mean, any exercise is,
fair.
But lifting weights is no exception, but especially higher intensity exercise. Not only does being functionally strong and capable do a lot for one's confidence and self-esteem.
Sure does.
But the neurotransmitters and hormones released by weightlifting or resistance exercise makes us feel at ease and satisfied, and improves our mood.
I like that.
All right. Studies have also shown that women who lift weights regularly are more likely to have a positive self-image, even compared to other exercise modalities. I find that interesting.
That is interesting. I like that.
And strength training has improved psychological outcomes for women with a history of eating disorders. That's another one that I found interesting.
I like that
as well. There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, cardiovascular, metabolic syndromes and like cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of women in the U.S. Right, diabetes has been rising in the female population as well, and women who lift weights can have a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease by don't quote me. It's from 40 to 70%.
Oh, I'm going to hold you to
it. Diabetes by 40%.
So however you look at it, whatever the exact percentage is, it's a big improvement.
Thank you. It's a lot, yes. Women are also more prone to osteoporosis as they age. 1 in 3 women, man, I have too many numbers today, Brandon. 1 in 3 women will experience a bone fracture related to osteoporosis in their lifetimes. Yeah. Awesome, right? So resistance exercise is the most important thing that we can do to strengthen bones and prevent osteoporosis. Yes, I know. We want to fix everything with supplementation, but lifting weights, and we can get super sciencey on that and why that's that way, how that works, Wolf's Law and all of that. But resistance exercise strengthens our bones. We'll keep it at
Nice.
that. And my jam is preventing future injury and improving our daily lives, and regular resistance training, especially utilizing foundational functional movement patterns, really does exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to talk about your experience a little bit, though.
My experience. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I recently found myself in a position where I wanted to level up, for lack of a better word, my fitness routine. I really wanted to step it up a notch. And I really liked the muscle definition that was starting to happen with the consistency that I created in my workouts and doing my HIIT 3 to 5 times a week. But I wanted to bump it up a little bit, and I wanted to be at a point where I felt I could and I was at a point where I felt like I could handle changing my routine. Like, now I can handle it. We talk about those baby steps. So a few months ago, I added weightlifting. Now, I was lucky enough that I have your guidance, which I am very much still needing. And as you can see, I have not turned into a bodybuilder yet. We'll see.
It hasn't happened yet.
No.
That's, to return to that point is important, I think, because you have to work really
hard,
freaking hard. Bodybuilders work crazy hard, guys. And they do a lot of stuff. There's a lot to it. Mm-hmm. Nobody accidentally, becomes a bodybuilder. But,
correct.
So you added what, 2 to 3 days a week of lifting, and noticed within a few weeks really that it made a difference. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So I was quite pleasantly surprised. The obvious thing was the muscle definition I was seeing that hadn't been there before with my other activity. That's pretty obvious. However, what was more surprising to me than that was watching how my actual body composition was changing. I have been gaining weight recently, but the amount of weight, or the weight that I've been gaining, was actually muscle mass that increased. Inflammation, fat, all decreased, and my waist is actually more than an inch smaller just from lifting weights. I didn't change my diet. I didn't change anything else, just from lifting weights. I weigh 8 pounds heavier than I did when I first reached my goal weight. So when I said, oh, cool, I reached my goal weight, now I want to start lifting weights, I'm 8 pounds heavier now than I was then. And like I said, my waist is smaller. So it tripped me out to see that, after a month or so of pretty inconsistent, if I'm being honest, weightlifting, I wasn't so great at it in the beginning. My motivation really increased, and I was even more committed to my weightlifting after that. And best of all, what increased was my BMR by almost 300 calories. That's right. It means that just by sitting here talking to you guys, I'm burning 300 more calories than I did 2 months ago just sitting here. But before you get all too excited, we are all about honesty here. So I want to point out that not everyone is going to be lucky enough to, after 2 months, have a smaller waist and be more shapely and have all the things that I had. Everybody's different. Everybody's bodies are different.
Right. Well, you'd been working on a lot of stuff prior to that. Like, you'd been doing a ton of exercise. It's been, that's a very kind of small snapshot of your journey. So all that stuff is awesome, and it sounds incredible. I want to be like totally transparent. Right. It was a long road to that point.
Correct.
Right. So everyone's body is going to sort of respond differently. We have to keep in mind that bodies don't really like change a whole lot, right?
Not really.
But that's it's a pretty incredible thing that and a really overlooked thing. Jesus, I'm stumbling over everything. But I think we really overlook the benefit of having more muscle on our body. Like, we look at that scale and people just start freaking out. Like, oh my God, I'm gaining weight. And it's like, it doesn't even matter, right? Like, is that really what you want, more than to see different changes in your body? I think most of us really are more concerned about, how we feel and how we look. Than we are about, but we get fixated on that number on the scale.
Could you imagine if I got onto a scale that didn't actually weigh my muscle mass versus my inflammation, how defeating it would feel to gain 8 pounds? That would be Whew, that would not be fun. So I don't normally look at the scale. I don't need to look at that. I base things off of how I feel. And lifting weights has also made me feel stronger. It's made me feel more capable. So I focus more on those things, but I'm just lucky enough that I have other tools that I can actually measure the amount of muscle I'm growing.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. So, just to recap a little bit, we've covered the biggest fear women have with weightlifting, getting bulky. And most women, actually, you're not going to get bulky overnight unless you're really going for it. If you're trying to get bulky, you'll get bulky. And all the good reasons why you should lift weights, including some very unexpected tidbits that I didn't even expect, like increasing your bone density and fighting osteoporosis. Like I didn't even know about that. And that's a really good one. But let's go into my favorite part. Are you ready? It's time for action. Dirty action.
Oh my God.
That means doing the hard stuff, the things that will get us moving in the right direction. Now, I was lucky enough to have someone really, really guiding me when I decided to start lifting. So as things started to change, if I did start to turn into a square, which sometimes can happen, or my body started changing in ways that I wasn't really happy with and didn't want to keep going in that direction, I had somebody to guide me. But unfortunately, not everybody has that. So can we get into some things that we can do to get started with weightlifting? Maybe some specifics like do this.
Yeah, no, you do have that.
Yay.
So let's start with how often, right? So frequency, right? Like how often should you be lifting? This is pretty subjective. This depends on a couple of factors, but if you're starting out, I think it's good to start with like twice a week.
Okay.
Rebecca, I know you're like shooting for 3 times a week, but you also own a gym.
Not really getting there, but I do have the benefit of having a gym. That's fair.
Right. But you're also doing a lot of stuff. So other things. So just picking 2 times during the week is a great way to kind of start to get into it.
Yeah.
It's also good, like kind of a good maintenance frequency as well. If you're not like trying to like see strength gains every week, or you're not trying to get into bodybuilding. 2 times a week is fine. Especially though, if you are like familiar with lifting weights maybe, but you do a lot of other exercise as well. So that's kind of the biggest point I want to drive home. Like you don't have to lift weights like all the time. Now, if it's going to be like your only exercise, right? Like you're just going to lift weights, then you want to build that up.
Do a little bit more.
To get into higher frequency, right? We want to be active really like 6 days a week. I'm not saying that everyone should be lifting weights 6 days a week. You should be like, if that's your jam and you love it, then
go for it.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, that's where things start to get a little more interesting in terms of splits and things like that. Like I myself, or maybe I'm just going to throw another scenario out there. Like maybe you're like a treadmill or elliptical, killer. I think it's good to sort of reverse the ratio of weights and cardio and start doing more weights than you do that low and slow cardio. I lift or do some sort of higher intensity resistance exercise, like a HIIT class or something like that, 5 or 6 days a week. And I'll hit like a low and slow sort of recovery cardio, like a hike or a run, once or twice a week.
Perfect. So twice a week is a good start. Got it. Now, I know a big obstacle for me mentally, we talk about the physical bit, but mentally preparing for this, heads up everybody, I'm an overthinker. Yay. How long is this going to take? And like, what do I do? Like, what body parts should I focus on? Should I have a certain amount of time that I do this? Like when you do Tabatas, you should have this much time, or is there a certain amount of reps I need to be doing? How much is too much? How much is not enough? All the things. I think of all the things and then I'm like, it's too much. I'm not going to do it.
It can turn into a lot. And I think that's the bottom line, is like keeping it simple, especially at the beginning. So you just like feel like you know what you're doing. And once you don't get freaking bored, like I'm going to be totally honest,
Yes,
like,
please.
and you don't hear this very much, but people discover it pretty quickly when they start lifting. Like, and like you said earlier, we're all about being transparent and honest.
Yes, we
Like
are.
weightlifting can be freaking boring.
Yes, it
Like,
can.
so it's
Mhm.
not, it's not going to be super like fast paced, like a HIIT class or like the circuit classes we do here at the gym. So, I think it's important to like kind of keep things relatively, I want you to do this in a way that, keeps it as fun as it can be.
As fun as possible.
I enjoy lifting weights, so I don't have a whole lot of problem with that, but we hear it a lot. Like it can get boring.
Yeah.
So frequency determines my duration, right? So if I'm only lifting twice a week, then I probably want to do like a full body workout both times.
Okay.
Right. And that's going to be a little bit longer. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I recommend focusing, if that's what you're doing, I recommend focusing either way. I always recommend focusing on the foundational functional movements, right? Push, pull, squat, lunge, hinge, and rotate. And carry is a bonus. Some people don't include that in their functional movement patterns. I'm a big advocate. So a good starting point is your classic 3 sets of 10, right? Your push, like a bench, or even a vertical push, like an overhead.
Okay.
A pull, like a row of some sort, whether it's like bent over rows, or you can do bench.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say pull-ups.
Well, pull-ups are fantastic also. And that we could do, we could do a progression on how to like build pull-ups into your life, or how to be able to do pull-ups.
I totally derailed you. Back to
it. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, that's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Right. Doing that many exercises and getting 3 sets of 10 of each of those. When it comes to like doing maybe like a 3-day split or something like that, like now things get a little bit more interesting, right? You can alternate like upper body days and lower body days. Another way that it can be done is you can do like a push day, a pull day, and a lower body day. Okay. So it can be
you can do a lot with it. You can be creative.
Right. We could talk about this for hours, right? So I think, starting simple with that 2 days a week of a full body workout, 3 sets of 10 of everything is a great way to get started.
Perfect.
Okay. Rest. I take a lot of rest between sets because my goal is to get the best of every set.
Me too.
And that requires those ATP stores to replenish over a couple of minutes between sets. But you can tinker around with that. There's a lot to talk about here, and I don't want to get like crazy in the weeds.
Yeah. Okay. Now I bet you're thinking, how heavy should my weights be? Right? That's what I'm thinking, is how heavy do they need to be? And at first, it will be a little bit of trial and error, to be honest with you. But the key is that when you're doing your sets, is that you want to reach as close to muscle fatigue as possible toward the end of each set, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much
I'm learning.
Like approaching failure.
Yes, approaching failure. The one time in life where that's a good thing. That means your weight should be heavy enough that by rep 7, 8, 9, things are feeling pretty spicy and pretty challenging, but doable, right? They need to be doable. And so it's also 100% okay to adjust your weights as you go. Sometimes I start with a certain weight and realize, I'm tougher than I look. I can go a little heavier. Or sometimes by set 7 or 8, I realize I'm going to drop this just a little tiny bit so I can make it all the way to the end. Either one of those scenarios is totally, totally fine.
Yeah. Especially, while you're learning, you won't be, affecting your results negatively by adjusting your weights kind of as you go. That's necessary. You want to find out kind of where you are. It helps to like, I mean, I've been doing this forever, so I don't like necessarily keep a chart for myself, but a chart really makes it like a lot easier to keep track of that stuff when you're getting into it.
I may have a spreadsheet.
The other thing in terms of intensity, like how much you lift, like how heavy you should lift, err on the side of too light.
Yes.
It's good to challenge yourself, right? I want you to get to that 10th rep and be like, whew, this is tough.
Yes.
But if you are anything you're lifting that you can lift 10 times, shouldn't, that in itself should keep you from lifting anything that's like inappropriately or dangerously heavy. All right.
Those are some good starting points.
That was a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff.
So if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, like I'm still like not really sure where to start. Like I said, aim for that like 2 days a week of a full body workout.
Yes.
Do a push like a bench or an overhead press, a pull like a row, whether it's a bent over dumbbell row or a bench, single arm rows, whatever. What did I say? A push, a pull, a squat. A squat is pretty simple if nobody's shown you how to do that. Again, err on the light side. Yes. Big time with your squats. And if you're doing a hinge like a deadlift, err on the lighter side. Focus on your form. Feel what you're supposed to feel. Concentrate on your muscles and know where you're supposed to feel things. That's a whole other talk. And hinge, rotate. Okay. That's a whole thing. I could do a whole other talk on that. A simple, quick rotation exercise would be something like bicycles or like band wood chop type exercise. I know, fun stuff.
I guess what he's trying to say is if you have questions on this, you could totally reach out to us. We love helping. We love answering questions. And if you reach out to us, absolutely one of us will get back to you and answer your questions for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Go way down the rabbit hole with this stuff. Okay. Questions, ask us, reach out. We're happy to talk. Yes. Those of you who are part of our community already, you know that. So please do avail yourself of that opportunity because we're happy to do it.
Totally.
Other than that, you guys keep doing what you're doing out there for each other. Our community is so freaking awesome. That is what really sets us apart over here in our online community, but also in our facility, our gym over here in Concord, California. So if you are not part of one of those places, please come in.
Yeah.
Do that and keep doing what you guys do for each other, lifting each other up and helping each other get through these day-to-day things that we all have to do and becoming more and more healthy as we go. All right. We're out of here.
Bye.
I've rambled more than enough. I love you guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.